You cannot change somebody else.
How dare you?
How much for his?
Enough!
But you can change yourself if you want to. We always start with you. If you want to develop excellent social skills or people skills, if you like, you have to have self-awareness. People are interesting. Most people are curious about why we do it the way we do it and how people are wired. Maybe the human brain is the most complicated organ on the planet. Men have a higher proclivity for violence than women have. Men are a little bit more task-oriented. Women are a little bit more relation-oriented. It's about when the frontal lobe closes. What that means cognitively is that now you can make decisions and understand the consequences. That happens at the age of 23, 24 when it comes to young men. It happens around 18, 19 when it comes to young women.
What you picked up on, which I think is definitely important, is that not one, and you write that in your book actually, Surrounded by Idiots, there's no one method which is perfect, right? And I think this links to something else which you write in your book, which is that there are variations in culture and in gender. And you kind of preface that at the beginning of Surrounded by Idiots, and you say, look, I've only got this much space, or I need to focus on this thing. I can't go into all the differences amongst different cultures or amongst men and women. But just to put you on the spot here, well, what do you think the differences are in between cultures and genders, and how wide do you think the differences might be between a male blue and a female blue?
Well, this can get very messy very quickly, as we all know. But let's stay on the safe side a little bit and say that men and women are mostly the same when it comes to personalities and behaviors and characteristics. I mean, if you look at the distribution curve, the overlap, I mean, 60-40, we are mostly the same, but there are differences. And any system that measures personalities or behaviors worth its name says the same thing. Men are a little bit more task-oriented. Women are a little bit more relation-oriented. I don't know why that is. Nobody can explain why that is. Maybe Mother Nature or our creator or whatever theory you believe in made us that way. I don't know. But all the tools says the same thing. And it doesn't really matter if you don't like that explanation. It's like saying men have a higher proclivity for violence than women have. It's not the same thing as saying women can't be violent, because some of them are, absolutely. Usually people say that's about testosterone, and if you look at the end of the curve, the most violent people on the planet are all men. It's just the way it is. Why is that? I don't know. Why did evolution make it that way? Is it about, I don't know, go hunting in the woods and women are there to take care of the children? I really don't know. I haven't looked into why that is. But I can say that is the difference. When it comes to we also have cultural things that actually, let's say, some cultures emphasize certain behaviors, and if you find more men in that corner, you will hire more men. Let's say, why are there more male engineers? Well, there are more blue men than there are blue women. I'm not talking about skills or competence or experiences. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm only talking about behaviors measured with the four colors, which gives you a bigger recruitment base when it comes to men if you want a blue engineer. But this is just an example. We know there are excellent women that are into engineer and they are creating incredible things. So we know this. And we know men are also, let's say, professionals. They are very successful within traditional female occupations. We know this. So we have a culture of things to deal with. But when it comes to what we can measure psychologically and physiologically and biologically, even though it's unpopular sometimes, there are some differences. But again, the similarities are bigger. They absolutely are. So I would focus on those. Definitely so. But it's really tricky to say. And different parts of the world, if you go to the far East Asia, introverted behaviors are more accepted because you should be more quiet. Confucius talked about silence. He talked about being quiet, talked about active listening and so on. In our part of the world, it's noisier. It's more extrovert behavior gets more acknowledged, I would say. But it changes. When I was a young boy in school, when I was in fourth grade, fifth grade, all the teachers promoted introvert behavior. The whole school system. Sit down, be quiet, pay attention, listen carefully, and do as you're told, which is perfect if you're an introvert. These days, my kids, when they went to school, it had totally shifted. So now it's all extrovert. The teacher said you have to work in teams, you have to cooperate, you should present yourself, you should talk about, who you are and show yourself, present yourself to the room and take some space, which is excellent if you're an extrovert. But now the introvert kids feel really bad. So, it's really silly. What about finding a balance between these two worlds, let's say? What about letting the introvert kids learn in their manner and the extroverted kids learn in their manner? Why this change? I don't know. I don't know. I can see the shift has been there, so maybe it goes back again.
You mentioned how, for example, imagine women are maybe traditionally seen as more empathic. But you also mention in the book how different colors have different strengths and weaknesses. My point is, do you think that it's, for example, better to be empathic overall? Do you think that some traits are simply better? Because this was something that maybe confused me a little bit, in that some colors, for example, red, just seem a little bit worse than others. Or do you think all colors are just on the same level?
Worst, as in, what do you mean worse?
Well, for example, I feel like the aggressive nature of a red person might be less conducive to a healthy society.
Ah. Well, back to the gearbox in your car. Sometimes you need somebody who points with his full hand and says, this is the way to go. This is the way to do it. If you talk about we need strong leaders, so then you have to have red behavior. If you need somebody to sit down and pay attention to details and to listen thoroughly to your inner feelings and your inner thoughts, then the red person is not your guy or your girl. Then you need somebody else. You need some green person, perhaps, or maybe some blue person. It depends on the situation. And that's what I meant just a couple of minutes ago when Ollie asked about are all behaviors equally good? But it depends. The context matters. You have a red person in the right context. The red behavior take Sweden as an example. In Sweden, red behavior is not accepted very much because it goes against our culture a little bit. Swedish culture, if you go back in time, if you talk about Swedish culture, you would say we are very, very caring. We are taking care of each other. We like to help each other out, but we are kind of conflict avert. We don't like quarreling. We don't like raised voice, and fists in the air. We don't like people swearing too much publicly. If someone does something really stupid in the restaurant, we will all be looking away. We wouldn't say, "Hey, could you please stop that?" We wouldn't do that. And red people, they don't care about these things. Red behaviors are not very, let's say, it's not accepted the same way as, let's say, a blue or a green behavior is in Sweden. In other places in the world, it's completely different. Then you have to act red just to make yourself heard. If you don't raise your voice, nobody's paying attention to you. Who's right and who's wrong? I don't know. These are culture differences. And that's why it's so tricky to combine different cultures sometimes, because you have a certain, we are prolonged to act in a certain way because we're used to it, and these things can clash quite hard when you put two big differences together in the same room. It's like putting a blue person and a yellow person in a room. They are quite the opposites. They have absolutely nothing in common, and you can just shut the door and say, "No, no, you work it out. You solve the problem." One is starting to take in notes, and one will start to talk and then forget about the whole thing. They are not on the same planet. You need some sort of a balancing mechanism. Otherwise, it's going to be too tricky. And we still just talk about behaviors, right? We're not talking about personalities. We're not talking about psychological issues or histories or culture-based, um, uh, what, attitudes or fundamental values or those things. These things can be really, really complicated if you scratch the surface a little bit. But to say red behavior is bad, it is more aggressive than the other behaviors. That's true. Sometimes you need to show that you're serious. I'm not saying that you should shout and yell at people. That's not what I'm saying. But aggression, or let's say the being able to feel aggression within you, it's not always a bad thing, because if you accept everything all the time, people are going to run you over. Sometimes you need to raise your hand and say, hey, you better stop that, buddy, because that's not okay. Don't do that, not once again, because then I will just, you have to leave. Don't do that. And if you have to sort of, boast yourself a little bit, well, why not? Sometimes if you show aggression all the time, that's a bad thing. The context matters quite a lot. You know that, but I would never say this color is better than the other color. I would never say that, even though I'm in my book tries to make friends with everybody. I know I do that. Maybe I'm a bit of a coward there. I don't know, but I think all behaviors are good, but not everywhere. I'm lacking green behavior myself, which is very problematic for me. I am not born a good listener, so I'm struggling, but I can turn that knob on. I can just turn the switch on and say, okay, now I'm going to listen to you. But then it goes off again. So I have to pay attention to these things. But I know it. It's my self-awareness. This is my way of showing empathy. I think empathy and social skills are very, very connected to each other.
Do you want to frolic freely at the beach, hairless both upstairs and downstairs? Tired of being left bloody, stumbling and alone because of a bad razor? Then you know what to do. Get yourself a Manscaped. With the new Beard and Balls bundle, you can stay fresh all over. Use the discount code LOW for 20% off now.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that clip from our interview with Thomas Erikson, the author of Surrounded by Idiots. If you'd like to check out the full interview, you can click right here. Please like and subscribe and drop a comment with your thoughts down below to keep supporting the channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.